I am here now to redefine diversity. I think diversity in my life now is a sign of risk. I think this room sees it as a sign of opportunity. So my goal is to get a band together.
The issue for me has always been that often those diverse teams are often answerable to higher levels within either institutions or within government that are not diverse.
Black and brown people administrate, we don't allocate.
That yes, that is effective, and to the combining these kind of you putting capital out, but then also not get hung up in sort of the kind of systems we're affecting the system and we're going to catalyze that capital, like move it from these abstractions to actually like putting money out to the people. And when you put money out to communities, you're going to have effects you won't necessarily know, but it's only when that happens is something going to actually happen. So
what I'd say is let's take a couple of practices from Silicon Valley, and that's to be forecasting. So let's be proactive instead of reactive.
On paper, it all looks easy, and then when you start actually implementing it, the crazy comes out. And the crazy is the legacy of 300 years of this crazy country we live in, and the need to create this narrative of white privilege to justify a bunch of awful things that have happened.
We're seeing a lot of practices that, frankly, I haven't seen much in the U.S. have a lot of success. And in our network, what we've seen is that institutions with 35% of women on boards, in management, and on staff actually have a higher return on assets and reach more women clients.
In the 94 to 2017, if we clock the 90s to now, boy, a lot has been learned about investing and equity investing and business investing and real estate investing. We're no longer at the baby steps points. A lot of money's been lost. Actually, the write-off rates are pretty darn good in CDFIs, so we know a lot more. So I think this is actually a nice moment. I don't think we should judge this field as mature and finished. I think this is a field that is in a nice position for a next stage of growth and partnership.
For the past 8 or so years, we have really been very focused on the fact that with the shifting demographics, rapidly becoming a nation in which the majority will be people of color, the equity agenda has moved from being a moral imperative to being a moral imperative and an economic imperative. In fact, we say that equity is the superior growth model. I love the things that you talked about, and your particulars really begin to tick off what you've got to focus on. But the things that you talked about are not common out in the market. That we understand that we have lots of challenges. Some of them are skills. Some of them are money and capital. Some of them are deal flow. Some of them are measurement, and they all interact, and all of those are exacerbated within communities of color, where we need to be building up more skill. We need to build up more ownership.
We're doing a project with the Cerna Foundation on the obstacles that first-time fund managers of color face, right? Early-stage VCs, essentially, in raising their funds. And in one of the conversations with one who has been successful, he said, my problem, is racism, it is implicit bias, but really ultimately is that I need to come up with a general partner stake for the fund before I can go out and get the limited partner money, and I'm not sitting on that kind of money. So if you want to do something that is really meaningful for first-time fund managers of color, help us with a staking fund, something that can help fund that GP piece.
It has to really come from the top. The CEO of a company, the elected official, the principal, the head of any institution has to make a very distinct, clear vision that diversity is not an aspect of, it is sort of the pillar of the institution.
We find that diversity is messy because we try to change in the middle or at the bottom. We don't change at the top. If we change at the top and you bring in people who value it, who are comfortable in it, who've lived it, you'll find that it won't be so messy. I talk about it as the curb cut effect. that I have, that the curb cut effect, that those curb cuts in the sidewalk are there because of the advocacy of people with disabilities so that people in wheelchairs can get around. But the benefits cascade. How many times have people been pushing a stroller and been happy that that was there? Workers pushing carts and pulling wagons. And we also know that those curb cuts save lives because they orient people to cross at the curb. Solve problems for the most vulnerable, and the benefits cascade out. Solve the problems of people who are of color in this country who have been left behind, and the economy will benefit. Everybody will benefit.
Ultimately, it's in those mechanical aspects of knowing where you can step in, how these things work, the fact that certain buyers buy the tax-exempt bonds and not others, okay, that will determine which way you go on your racial justice policy there. So encouraging people that are on the racial justice, racial equity side to become way, way wonky on the finance side.
Out of the $60 billion allotted last year in the social finance world, 7% went to women, 2% went to black male. You know, brilliance is in abundance, right? Opportunity, unfortunately, isn't, and access isn't, right? So what we are going to do, marching forward, is try as much as possible to bridge this divide, and the call to action for you is to join us as we try as much as possible to onboard this financial revolution.
Top-down policies where the investors or the people that might have had decent intentions didn't consider the community itself. One advantage of diversity in what I do is that people open up and give me the real story. They tell me what is going on in the community. And for better or for worse, we're having that diverse perspective and identification helps us to understand what's really going on in these communities. It takes more wealth on a dollar-for-dollar basis for entrepreneurial organizations or any organization to develop affordable housing than market-rate luxury housing, if I told you that. It takes more wealth to create affordable housing that you are investing your tax dollars in than it does for market-rate housing.
We certainly think it's important that just like it's important to have a diverse workforce, to have, a diversity of opinion, it's important to have a diversity of stakeholders investing in those communities.
We certainly see our role as the role of an incubator. We work with private industry and want to work with private industry oftentimes to subsidize work that isn't popular or work that isn't fun or sexy, because we know that it's the important work that needs to happen.